and you can have a very successful game store and make a lot of money doing so. But it's also about having something deep down in your heart that makes you want to own one as well. I know for a fact I could be making a lot more money doing something else, and I've been offered jobs to do that. But I don't want to. I love what I do, and I'm never going to give it up.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Match Slip Podcast. My name is Frank. I'm your host of the show. If you aren't already following the Match Slip on YouTube, you can check us out at youtube.com/@thematchslip, and you could follow the show there if you prefer video form over audio form. But with that being said, we're going to go to our feature aspect of this episode, and we're going to bring in Cody. Cody is the owner of Everything Games out in Illinois. So without any further ado, Cody, I'd like to welcome you to the program.
I appreciate it, Frank. I'm actually a big fan of the show, so it's an honor and privilege to be here. I appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure to have you on. And so you've been listening to the show for a while. I know we connected on Facebook Messenger and we were talking there a little bit. So what is your relationship with gaming? What got you into gaming from the get-go?
So when I was about 12 years old, there was a local comic book shop that was doing advertising for like actual commercials to come out and do like gaming and stuff like that. And, you know, I struggled with depression as a kid, and my mom took me out and went to go do that as an activity. They were like, hey, it's Friday. We're going to play Magic: The Gathering. I'm like, oh, cool. Like I collected the cards, used them as little action figures because I didn't have action figures as a kid. And it was Betrayers of Kamigawa starter deck that had the Jitte in it. And weirdly enough, my first experience with Magic was not the greatest because the guy that worked for the store sharked me for the Jitte and had me trade it for a Dragon Roost. And then I went to play HeroClix instead and then got back into the game later. But I've kind of just always been on and off with the game for years.
That's really interesting. My first relationship with the game, too, was a starter deck. Mine was Champions of Kamigawa.
Ooh.
So
those were good times.
I knew nothing.
We used to like tear up the tops because they just were a bad card back then. And now I'm like wishing I didn't.
I know the feeling. Like I'm actually glad I somehow all these years later kept the original starter deck box that I got at the time. So I'm shocked I still had it when I looked for it not too long ago.
I got to see it one of these days. I miss those days.
Yeah, simpler times of Magic, less products, and I'm sure for you that was would be preferred at some times, I would imagine, right?
I mean, yes or no. I think I know a lot of stores with the play and collector and set and draft and bundles and gift bundles and jumpstart. Yeah, there's a lot of SKUs. But I think there's a thing about having just enough SKUs, not enough SKUs, and too many. And I think right now we're in that sweet spot with Play Booster, Collector, and all that. An analogy I use a lot with my staff is, you know, if you have, for instance, a vending machine that sells Coke, you're choosing between Coke or nothing. But if you have a Coke and a Pepsi machine, you're choosing between Coke and Pepsi. So having those two different SKUs makes it where it's not a choice about if I'm going to get, for instance, Modern Horizons 3. It just came out this past weekend. It's not a choice of, am I going to get Modern Horizons 3 or not? Am I going to get a collector pack or a play pack? And that's definitely helped us in our sales.
Do you like that they went to that model of Play Booster and Collector Booster rather than when it was the three of, Draft Booster, they were calling it Play Booster, which wasn't used for draft at the time, and then the Collector Booster? Do you like the 3 versus the 2?
I like the 2 versus the 3. I think 3 SKUs was too many. I think that if they had set clearly was a lot different than draft, it would have been different. But draft and set were just too similar, and for the price point, there wasn't enough change in difference where we just sold set and no one bought draft. Whereas now, I mean, I sell a lot of play and I sell a lot of collector. I mean, we sell a lot of sealed product in our shop.
And how do those sales compare to when you look at, say, like the singles and accessories like deck boxes and card sleeves?
So we're weird at everything games when it comes down to our product and what sells. Most stores will say singles is their number one. I would say for us, it's sealed product. We've really turned into being more about selling packs and boxes, and then as well as sleeves, accessories, and we do a lot of singles. Don't get me wrong, but that's not our bread and butter. We really focus on selling the sealed product and seeding the Chicagoland area with as much sealed product as possible, and that helps out actually a lot of the other stores because they're selling it to us, but they're also selling it to the other stores when they're opening that product.
And so your store is in Buffalo Grove, Illinois. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And how far is that, like, from the city of Chicago?
So we are, it depends on the day with the traffic, right? But we are in the northwest suburbs. So we're I'd say about 30 minutes north. We're kind of dead center between the border of Wisconsin and the city of Chicago.
Okay. And what do you think it is about that area that sealed product seems to be more of the high selling item in terms of throughput versus, say, the singles? Like, because as you mentioned, for most stores that I've talked with, they've said the same thing, that singles are their bread and butter. So I'm curious what you think it is about the area you're in particular where the sealed product seems to sell more.
I think it's the community that we've actually cultivated. Part of it is we are very casual. We have in our own town another store, and they are very much the competitive scene. They actually run one of the largest series in the Midwest, Nerd Rage Gaming. They're also in Buffalo Grove. We also have Pastimes, which isn't too far as well, and they're a premier tournament organizer. We have a very highly competitive area for Magic and other trading card games. And then just north of us, I mean, you got Wisconsin, which has produced, I don't know, almost, I think, more pro players than any other state in the entire country, if not the world. So we really were like, hey, what makes us different? We want to be that casual, fun store. And it kind of 12 years ago when we opened, it wasn't necessarily what everyone thought was what we should be doing. But now in this post-COVID world and where this generation is and kind of the world we live in now, casual is king. I mean, that's where everyone wants to spend their money is on Commander. That's where everyone wants to go and play is going to be on a more casual level and making it more about an experience. So I think that's been what's helped. I mean, we sell so much sealed product. We sell a lot of singles, but we also do a lot of store credit payout for all of our events. So like for Commander, that's our biggest turnout. We do it Wednesdays and on Fridays. We get anywhere from 30 to 40 people on a Wednesday night. It's $10. They get a $10 gift certificate, and they can use it on anything other than event entry. So we get a ton of people coming out, and they want to spend that credit, and they want to use it on stuff, and they want to open packs. They get a play pack every time that they come in too. So $10, you get a promo pack, and a $10 gift card for $10.
I think that's very generous too. What's enabled you to be able to do that? Because I'm sure by doing something like that, I'm guessing entry into events of that nature, you're not expecting to make money on those events. Is that correct?
Yes and no. So I've actually we have a pretty decently large square footage for our play area. I've kind of went and I figured how many square feet we have, what my rent is per month, and on average how many players I have, and I figure what's the number I need to make off of if they were going to spend money based off of my average profit margin to see what would make sense to break even / profit off of that play area. And that number is $10 for the amount of people that we get in weekly. That's to cover the square footage for the rent, how many times they flush the toilet, how many times they may or may not open the sink to wash their hands, the soap, the toilet paper, the trash bags, and just the labor of running the events.
That's fantastic. So you got it down essentially to a science to where you know that you can offer these extra bonuses like the gift certificate to players that are entering.
Yes.
That's great. I really like seeing that. That's a unique aspect that I haven't. Normally the stores will have the promo cards to hand out, but the extra bonuses that you add on, I think, is a good touch. So you said you started the store 12 years ago. So I would like to hear a little bit about the origin story of how your store came to be, how the name got created, and the journey from where you started to where you are now.
Yeah. So um, my father and I actually 12 years ago decided to go into a business together. He used to run a roofing aluminum siding business that he did with his father. I kind of was like floundering a little bit in life. And my mom was sick with cancer at the time, and she was like, you gotta do something with your son. So my dad came up to me one day and he goes, "Hey, so we're gonna open up a business. What do you want to do?" And my first thing was, I'm gonna shoot for the stars. He's never gonna say yes to a game store, but I'm gonna try it and see what happens. And I'm like, "Dad, let's open up a game store." He's like, "Okay." I was like, oh, okay. I guess we're going with the first option. So at first we planned on becoming an online store. So we wanted to do online out of our house, and we wanted to do trading card games, board games, and video games. Uh, when you start a game store, you soon figure out that you need to have a brick and mortar store to be able to get almost anything. So we decided to start looking, got into a brick and mortar, and then we started in a little bit over 800 square feet, very tiny store. And within 2 years, we ended up going into something 3 times the size, about 2,400 square feet. And then about 8 years after that, we ended up at our 10-year mark, ready to expand again. The issue is right when we were ready to expand, COVID happened. So we had to wait, and then we turned our entire play area into just product. When they uplifted all the restrictions, we decided to just wait for any kind of gaming until we got in the new store, so we can be just making that smooth transition. Now we're a little over 5,000 square feet. We ended up going and becoming what is now, I believe, the largest square foot game store in Chicagoland. Don't quote me on it. No one's argued it with me yet. But I'm pretty sure we're close to being that largest square foot game store in the Chicagoland area.
That's pretty cool. And that, I would imagine, was over time based on from where you started. Were there multiple expansions throughout that? And have you always been at the same location?
So we have always been in the same strip mall. We have just slowly gone into larger spots, and it's kind of like this person ended up going and being, it kind of just worked out perfectly. Like there was an opening, we knew we wanted to expand, and we're already at a point where we need to expand again. I mean, we've outgrown in just 2 years since 3 years, 2021 when we moved. We're already at a spot where I don't know what to do with everything.
Is it the number of products you have coming in that become a trigger point to, okay, we need to expand? Is it the number of customers coming in? You're like, I need more space to accommodate that. How do you know exactly as a store owner when the right time to do that is, when factoring like the costs involved?
I would say it's a few things. One of the biggest factors is space, right? And in this new day and age where everyone and their mom seems to be making a trading card game, it's hard. You only have so much shelf space available, and most of them are becoming successful games. It's not just like the core three that we had pre-COVID, the Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon. Now it's Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, One Piece, the new Dragon Ball Fusion World game, Digimon, Lorcana, the Star Wars Unlimited trading card game. Altered is coming out this summer. I mean, there's just more and more. And then on top of it, we just keep expanding our lines and diversifying. So we finally did get video games into our store now. We do sports cards now. We do a lot of Warhammer. We do toys. We do Beyblade, Barbies. We do literally everything. We gotta stay close to the name as much as we can. but there's the amount of product, but it's also the amount of foot traffic. It's the amount of sales. I'm seeing that our sales have increased tenfold since moving into this location. But now I'm seeing, okay, well, now let's get another peak going. So what do we do to get more sales and invest more into the business? And that's where we're outgrowing the space already.
Is there a nerve-wracking feeling of, like you mentioned, you increased sales tenfold being in the space that you're currently in? Is there some hesitancy of moving and potentially like that space that's generated so much sales and the unknown of a new space having that same impact? How do you go about with choosing a new location when that time comes around to make sure you aren't losing any potential business?
And that's a hard one. We've been in the same strip mall because we've always been scared to move outside of it. I mean, we had it where we just moved around the corner within the strip mall one time, and I had a guy that came and found us after 8 years, and it's like, I thought you went out of business. Like, we've been in the strip mall this whole time. Like, how did you not know we moved around the corner? I mean, and that's always going to happen, and that's something that you have to worry about. But for me, it's how much more exposure can we get um, from being in a different spot. Like right now, we're in a spot in our strip mall where if you go into the main entrance, you have to see us. Like if you literally just kept driving straight, you'd run into my store. Versus we were kind of hidden behind a Wendy's in our strip mall before that, and that was a thing where it would hinder us, that visibility.
And what are some factors you're considering now? Like, do you see a move in the near future, or is it something you're slowly just starting to discuss at this point?
I would say we probably aren't looking at moving into a larger location just yet, but I would say that we are actively looking at second locations to expand the business and the
Okay.
radius.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, especially wanting to hold on to the foundation of the place that you have now. That I completely understand that.
Yeah.
So, with the operations that you have at the store, and you had mentioned that, with all the number of card games that come out these days, how do you manage all that on your side? Do you guys have like your own system in place? Is it just, the experience of being in business for 12 years, you've just learned how to facilitate it all through? How do you maintain that on a day to day?
I think the word survive is probably one of the biggest things to say. I think I've been in the industry now in some way, shape, or form 20 years. So I have experience, but no game is the same. And no, I can look back at my previous years and see how data is, but there's so many new card games. It's hard to do that with too. I think it's just how much you believe in a product. If um, I can make something the best selling game just by saying it's going to be the best selling game. If you go and build up that community and that hype and the work that you put into it, you're going to have the best selling game. And it could be the worst game out there. It could be the worst game that's not that no one else is able to do. It's how much effort you're willing to put in as a shop owner and your staff. And you can't just expect to build something and expect people to sit down in a chair. You have to put the work into it. And I think that's something that not necessarily everyone understands.
And what do you think has allowed for so many new games to come about? Because, like we were talking about a little earlier, when you and I first started playing Magic, there wasn't as many games, available to play. It was, you had your core ones, like Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon. So I'm curious what you think has led to this growth of new games being developed at the rapid pace that we're seeing.
I think it's market cycles. I think I think that right now we're living in the 90s all over again. Just like how about 10 years ago it felt like we were living in the 80s, and 10 years before that it was like we were living in the 70s. Everything's kind of just in this weird cycle. And COVID kind of helped in stimulating it as well. When you have a game like Pokemon that goes and within just 48 hours, I have product that went from being basically worthless to being this is the best selling card game on the planet right now. Um, there was a lot of FOMO and hype behind it, and it just takes one person to make it popular. And I think that's what's happening with a lot of things, is that everyone saw how Pokemon and that IP went, and that's making it where a lot of these licenses want to be incorporating card games, and a lot of companies are looking to add card games to be available as a product line that they carry. Because there's actually, like, if you look at Lorcana, Ravensburger is a board game and puzzle company. They also own Brio. They're puzzles, board games, and toys, and they created a trading card game based around the Disney IP, and they've never done one before. You have the new Oshi Push game that's coming out that just finished its Kickstarter. It's going to be around VTubers. That's done by Japanime Games. They're mostly going to be doing board games, but they're coming out with a trading card game. You had Star Wars Unlimited, which a trading card game coming out that's coming from a board game company, Fantasy Flight Games. I think everyone sees that there is money being left on the table by not having a trading card game from the publishers and manufacturer side, and they want to be able to get their hand in that pot. But I think we're approaching a point where there is too much trading card games in the market, and we're going to see what stays and what goes.
Which do you think have you seen be the most popular at your store, and what do you foresee any potential new games coming up that maybe hit a similar popularity, like say that the Lorcana buzz got in the beginning?
I think long term, I actually think there's going to be a weird shift. I think we're going to have, so the core three we always know, that Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, Magic, right? I think that they're still going to be there, but they're going to kind of sit back on the back burner, kind of like as a legacy kind of game, where they'll eventually just not get new players. They're just going to retain the players they had. But I think that moving forward, I think One Piece is going to have that number one slot once they get enough product to be able to support. And I don't think they are. I think that product is just going to continually be an issue because more and more people are getting into that game. I also think that pretty much almost any IP game that's coming out from Bandai is going to succeed, because that's what is working for Magic the Gathering as well with Universes Beyond. I also think that the Star Wars game, depending on how they handle it, can be one of the best games out there. I think Lorcana is going to kind of take that spot of Pokemon for being that family game. I know for me, it's kind of hit or miss. It's either really good or really bad for me in my store. But what I do know is that every one of the families locally that goes to Disney World is coming back potentially with a Lorcana starter deck and knowing how to play and wants to go play it. And I think that this year, the Altered TCG, I think that's going to also be a big wave rocker in the industry. That game is going to be changing how trading card games work.
So this is my first time hearing about Altered. What can you tell us about that game and what you feel is going to separate it from the others?
So Altered TCG has been, I think, the most successful Kickstarter for any trading card game that has been kickstarted at this point. It is a hybrid digital and physical game. So what's going to happen is that you open physical packs. There's an app that you have associated with the game as well from this, where you register your cards that you bought. For you to be able to play in local tournaments, you have to show ownership for these cards and submit deck lists from that app. That app is also going to have a secondary marketplace function as well. And you can order the cards that you own to be shipped to you as well. You can change the language, everything. But what happens is that you can essentially sell digital version of the card you got, and there's going to be a unique cards that are unique one-ofs in every pack. So what's going to happen is that if you trade one of those, you can keep it for fun casually, but then you traded it or sold it to someone else, they're going to be able to redeem it and then utilize it for large-scale events or even just in their local game store. So it's kind of interesting because it's going to get people. It's making what's a larger group come together into a smaller world. And there's also going to be a battle pass function, which I'm really excited about as an organizer. So you show up to more things, you earn actual redeemable things as well.
Seems a little bit like of a game changer of a new game concept with that hybrid incorporation that you're discussing. I haven't heard of something like this before, but to me, just from initial impression of what you're describing, seems like it could be quite the game changer in the industry. Do you feel like that as well from your side as an owner?
I fully believe that this is going to be a game changer in the industry on the condition that the industry embraces it. Um, I'm of the full belief that if you think a game is going to succeed, it's dependent on your other peers in the industry if they think it's going to succeed.
Right.
Because we, as the game stores, we're the ones that are going to drive and push it. And then on top of it, you have to have like the content creators out there, and what are they going to say about it to get customers to really buy into it.
And what are some of the most popular games you're seeing at this point in time in your game store?
One Piece all day long. One Piece is the number one game. We have a very large Commander, which I just think is a different game from Magic altogether at this point. Yu-Gi-Oh has been a big game for us, but that's declining. A lot of people are leaving Yu-Gi-Oh because of their prizing payouts from large scale events to do more of the Bandai games. The new Dragon Ball Fusion World game has also been a very big success for us right now.
And how many employees do you have to facilitate the games that you have hosted at the store?
So we have in total about 10 employees. And they function on, we have everyone knows how to run events. We cross train everyone on that. But they all have their different specialties. So for instance, I have someone that oversees all the video games, someone that oversees all my back end, someone that oversees all my social media content creation. And then I also have someone they're the ones in charge of the card room and doing all the cards. So I kind of give everyone little specialties, and we don't do it game specific. We do it kind of like an actual corporate company department, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And the thing that actually I found very unique when I was checking out your website was, and you alluded to it earlier, was delving into, vintage video games, especially like the one that piqued my interest right away was Super Nintendo, because that's probably my favorite console of all time. And so did you always go into it? Because I know the store is called Everything Games, but did you always, even from the get-go with your dad, was it always the concept of we're going to bring in as much as we can to stand by that name of the store, or did you have to grow into that?
It's kind of was both. When we picked out our name, we wanted to be broad in everything. But that was when we also wanted to open up an online store. And we're kind of not able to at that point in time because of how it worked. Now, when COVID happened, we really kind of changed everything up. And for years, we would get calls, "Hey, do you guys buy video games?" We'd be like, no, we don't. Just call GameStop. I kind of was like, Dad, we should just start doing video games during COVID. And we both agreed the next time we got a call asking if we bought video game stuff, we would just say yes. And we did. And we started with a collection of about 12 video games and a console to now having over 5,000 titles on the shelf at a time, and offering repairs for systems and the whole shebang, and having sealed copies of Pokemon games. Pretty cool too.
That is really cool. How do you determine though the pricing on those older games? Like if we take the Super Nintendo, for example, I'm always like fascinated with how pricing is decided upon a store level. I know there are some aspects online that you could look at, like eBay, for example, but I was curious what your methodology is for determining pricing of older games.
We have a weird system. So we look at eBay, but we're also looking at pricecharting.com. They're really good with the video game side of things. And then we also kind of look at some of our competitors online as well. We know we are more expensive on consoles than other retro video game stores, but we also know that we have a 1-year service agreement that's built into our consoles, and we really go heavy into making sure that they are tested, working, refurbished if needed. Um, we also have a philosophy that if we want to pay higher on consoles because we want, and we have to sell them higher, because you can't get into the retro gaming unless you have that system. So we always want to make sure we have a stock of them. And if we have them too low and they sell too quick, I'm dependent on customers coming and bringing their old Super Nintendo to be able to sell a Super Nintendo.
That makes sense. I'm always glad to this day that I kept mine.
We're going to take a quick break from this podcast to talk about our sponsor, Cardboard Shuffle. Cardboard Shuffle was our 10th podcast interview here at the Match Slip with store owner Mark. Mark has expanded his brand and has produced his own card sleeves called Shuffle Shields. Shuffle Shields come in packs of 100 premium matte card sleeves for standard size trading cards. They contain no PVC and are acid-free. I have 17 packs of Shuffle Shields card sleeves to give away to listeners of the podcast and followers of the Match Slip on social media. Requests for a free pack of card sleeves shipped for free to you will be processed on a first-come, first-served basis. To receive your free pack of Shuffle Shields, you'll need to send a screenshot that you're following Cardboard Shuffle on Facebook to frank@thematchslip.com. Good luck, and back to the episode.
As we transition to another aspect of your business that also caught my attention was delving into sports cards and collectibles. So, I know you usually see those more as a siloed store. Like, for instance, FYE has a lot of collectibles in their store, or on the flip side, you have sports collectible stores selling sports cards. So when did you decide to enter into that? And how, from a profit standpoint, how has that been for you guys since making that jump?
So sports cards is still newer to us. We've been doing it for maybe a little over a year now. It's the same thing with video games. We get calls all the time. Hey, do you guys do sports cards? And we'd be like, no. We don't buy and sell sports cards singles, and we don't buy used. We're purely getting newer stuff from distribution because I'm not ready to pull the trigger on sports singles. That being said, though, it really is taking off for the sports cards dynamic. And a big part of that for us is we see that with a lot of the Pokemon players and collectors, they're also sports cards people. We see there's a lot of cross everything. We get a lot of families that come in, and one of the kids wants Pokemon cards and is on the gamer side, but the other one is a jock and wants to do sports cards. And then you have the little girl who didn't normally have anything, and now she can go get a Barbie. And we want to make it where whenever a family comes in, no kid is left feeling that the other child was given more special treatment by walking into that store. And it makes parents a little more happy too.
That makes sense. And there's no happy parents, something for all the kids makes it all the worthwhile at that point. So I like that whole concept that you have going on. But the thing I'm thinking about also is, from then a business standpoint, is whenever you make this leap into a new product line that you may not have carried before, again, following the name that you guys have with Everything Games, what is the, from starting point to, say, carrying it in the store, how long before a new product line makes it into the store? How, do you guys decide internally? Do you guys discuss certain aspects of it? Because I know you mentioned some of your employees are specialized in certain things. So I was curious about how that process takes off before it's officially in the store.
It's sporadic. It depends on the product. I think for us, sports cards was, again, we got a lot of customers asking for it over the years, and we wanted to service them. So we did the research into it and said, hey, this is a distributor we can get it from. This is a price point and profit margin we're comfortable with. Let's try it out. And if it succeeds after, 30, 90 days, then we can reevaluate whether it has a permanent place in our store. I like to kind of try things out and see how they go. And then if it's really good, I'm going ham. If it's something that it did okay, I might still carry it, or I might just cut it completely. Like right now, Funkos, we went hard into Funko Pops and selling the new ones, and right now I'm liquidating, and that's okay. We made our money on them, and we just need the space to try something else. But when it comes down to new products, it's kind of just trial and error, and if that makes sense from the margin perspective.
What was one product that you tried out that you didn't know or didn't expect it to be as successful, say, as it was?
Beyblade and Barbie toys in general. With being that big box stores sell so much of that toy stuff, and there isn't as much of a margin to make money on the toy industry. I was kind of hesitant, but we had a lot of people asking. We do very well with the toys. Believe it or not, we sell a lot of Beyblades, and we actually got to do a pilot program where we got to try running a Beyblade event with Hasbro, and we had about 40 plus people that came out, and it was a blast. And we're going to do events with it again too, like with the Barbie dolls and other products like that. It's an upsell. It's mommy and daddy are buying stuff for their little boy for 2 packs of Pokemon cards. They got to keep it even. They get the Barbie. Now it's $15 for a Barbie. You got to get another pack for the little boy, and now it's all even, and they're all happy. But toys definitely is just kind of that one where, I mean, I'm not a kid anymore. Not all the toys that I know are going to be popular. They're not playing with Fisher Price and Playmobil. They're playing with iPads half the time. So
I know in general terms, products in game stores, the margins are typically low, but what is on the contrary to that? What is a product that you carry that would be considered a good margin for the store to help, maintain, the various things that, whether it be, utilities that you have to pay for, salaries for the employees? What is that product line that you would say is a big chunk of the revenue for the store?
I would say it's actually going to be my accessories. So that's going to be my sleeves, my deck boxes, my video game, my like third party accessories. So like the controllers, the cords, things like that. Those are probably my biggest profit margin, and the things I sell a ton of. Like we don't go below MSRP on those products either. If anything, it's at or sometimes even just a little bit above because the margin makes sense. But that's where the money is the accessories for us.
Okay. And that makes a lot of sense. I've heard other stores mention that as well. And is it purely because the cost of acquiring those from a supplier are cheaper than, say, like a box of Magic cards?
I would say it's twofold. It's the cost versus the MSRP is definitely a better percentage, but it's also I can continually restock it. When they stop printing Modern Horizons 3 collector boosters, they stop printing Modern Horizons 3 collector boosters, and I can't get any more. Or if they do have some left and they're doing really well in the secondary market, the distributors will raise the cost, and I have to pay a higher price to be able to stock something that is now hard to get. The other thing that is really good for us too is I do purposely stock, hold back some of my sealed product and wait a couple years and then sell it at the secondary market price. So we sell everything MSRP or less for our sealed product. So like for instance, the Eldrazi deck that just came out, I was selling it at $79.99, even though $125 was kind of the going rate. It made all my customers happy, but I did purposely sit on about 10 of them that are sitting in my back room that I'm going to wait 2 years for now. So that way, when no one has them, I can sell them at a higher rate.
And where in general do you see more of your sales coming from? My guess would be in store, but do you have a good distribution between online sales versus in-store sales?
I would say about 60% of our sales are our brick and mortar location. And then about 20% are our direct website, with the remaining amounts being our Amazon, eBay, and TCG player.
And what is your day-to-day job like with the store at this point, being so, seasoned with being a game store owner and your experience and number of years you've been doing this? What does your day-to-day role entail?
Now with having employees, it's mostly so I do all the major ordering, but I'm also building my employees and I'm chasing contracts. For me, it's about how can we keep growing and expanding our business. So that's what I'm focused on all the time is getting contracts, making deals, while also getting my staff members to be the best that they can be, if not already having them there at that point.
And what is a challenge and a success that you're dealing with at this point in time that you'd want to talk about? It could be something from the past, it could be something current, just a positive and a negative of things that you've experienced with running the game store.
I think the negative is kind of also the positive. It's kind of a hand in hand problem, which is we're growing so fast. We really popped off during COVID, and for me, that is one of the best things ever. But also growing so quick and so the way that we are, it's creating it where we're running into things that most stores and most companies wouldn't have to deal with in a matter of a month or two. They had years to do that. So like having it now that we went originally from just being my father and I during COVID to adding one employee to now having 9 more. Hiring, firing, policies, what benefits are we providing? That's all stuff that we had to figure out pretty quick. And I do have some corporate retail background, and my father has other businesses he worked for and that he owned and people that worked for him. But it's having to do it so rapidly. It's hard to do it sometimes.
And with the speed of which that you are growing, in many cases, other game stores would love to have that be both a positive and a negative, as you were mentioning. So the thing I'm thinking about here is, a lot of stores, the thing that they always talk to me about is word of mouth. That's how they get the name out about the store. You're clearly having another layer of success of that. Do you still find yourself needing to do as much marketing, say, as another store would? And if so, what type of marketing ideas do you put in place to be able to get the name out about the store?
So we definitely are always and will always be marketing. My philosophy is, and we can even look back at other big box stores and other mass retailers. I mean, Walmart's still advertising. We all know what Walmart is. Same with Target. But you need to have that reminder that people know you exist. There's also the people that still don't know we exist. We've been around for 12 years, and I have people that lived in my community for 30 and say, "Oh, I didn't know you were here this whole time. I've been shopping at this grocery store for years next door, and I never knew you were here." And that's a constant. It's not until people know that they want to get into a hobby that they know that something exists half the time. So we're always constantly advertising, and we do Google ads. We do Meta, so Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat. We're doing direct emails. We're doing, we go out and do shows. So we were just vending at a regionals for some of the Bandai games. We go to conventions. We're also doing stuff with the public. We're going to local like festivals, as well as advertising in like the local park districts, activity books, schools, all that jazz.
Which of those outlets have you noticed is like the best return in terms of whether it be getting customers in, whether you're going to a convention to acquire product to then bring back to the store and sell? Which has been the best for you guys?
I'd say it's for online advertising. It's definitely going to be the Facebook, Instagram kind of ones, and then also Google. They kind of are equally just as good. I'll also say too, we get some of our best customers though when we meet them at conventions and make that interaction face to face. It's fun when you get to go and say, "Hey, yeah, check out our store. We're only 10 minutes away from this convention." And then they come into the store and they see you, and it's like, "Hey, I just saw you 2 days ago." And you can pick up that conversation and have it more personable.
Absolutely. And I thought you made a great point too, because, people in general, you can wind up acquiring a hobby down the line that you may not have in the present time. So the idea of always marketing the store, I think, is a very smart idea, because it plays right into the fact that somebody may not play card games now, but they could in the future. So I think it's great that you're forward thinking like that. And it shows too, because you've been in business for as long as you have, with 12 years under your belt. So I think you're doing a great job there. And speaking of that great job, it coincides with the fact that you guys were nominated and you won Business of the Year in your area for 2023.
Yes. So we were honored by the local Chamber of Commerce for Buffalo Grove and Lincolnshire. So it's two communities that are joint with one chamber, as not just like the game store of the year or hobby, but the number one business essentially. And that meant a lot. We've won that award, and we've been, very ecstatic about that. And we're gunning for more awards, because it just, we want people to see who we are. And it's nice too to feel that people see what we're doing, and that we're doing it right.
And what do you think you did that earned you guys that award? What do you think you're doing that's separating yourself?
We're active not just with our own community in store, but with the community outside of the store as well. We donate games sometimes to the park district, to schools. There was a local board game gathering that was helping to support, as a fundraiser, kids that were struggling with cancer. So we donated a large amount of board games to them. We've also done things like Pride Parade and things like that as well, where we really are focused on being available to the community as a resource, and being that safe space for people to be as well.
And kind of to that point of how you earned the award, from your personal standpoint, maybe not what is perceived outside that got you the award, but what for you personally, Cody, is something that you consider unique that you may not have seen at another store?
I think it's our transparency. We are very much about being honest and transparent with what's going on. And sometimes people don't like it, but the reality of it is we don't want you to, I'm okay with you not buying something if it doesn't make sense for you. I don't want to sell someone just to sell someone. I want to sell someone something because it's going to be useful to them. I don't want people feeling shysted. And I think that comes back to my first interaction with a game store. I mean, that comic book store that I went to as a kid and I worked at in high school, the employee took advantage of me, and I don't want my staff or myself taking advantage of my clientele, the community, and I don't want my community taking advantage of each other either.
So it was all rooted for you back from that very first time. And it seems like from your experience over the years, you've definitely been able to harness what you've learned and implement that along the lines. You're basically trying to create a store that you saw something you didn't like in the past and you wanted to fix that.
100%. And I think that's something that most game store owners, I think, are really about too, is we don't go, it's not just about money opening up a game store. I think that there is a lot of money that's being left on the table, don't get me wrong, and you can have a very successful game store and make a lot of money doing so. But it's also about having something deep down in your heart that makes you want to own one as well. I know for a fact I could be making a lot more money doing something else, and I've been offered jobs to do that. But I don't want to. I love what I do, and I'm never going to give it up.
I think that in and of itself, that you love what you do, I mean, it is the reason why you're doing what you're doing, and why, myself, and I would imagine my listeners would echo the same thing, that you should keep doing it, because it's that, I think, drive alone, to hear that from a game store owner, shows you're in it for all the right reasons. You have the right mindset for it. And I think, as time goes on, that's what's enabling you to expand. That's why your customer base is growing, because they see that, and I think you're just doing a great job. So I just wanted to commend you for it.
I appreciate that. That means a lot, honestly.
My pleasure. One of my favorite questions, as you know from listening to the show, is to do the virtual tour. So I'll let you take that away.
Yeah. So when you are in the parking lot walking in, what you're going to see is instead of windows looking in, we actually wrapped our windows completely. So this grid that's behind me, is the base of what those wraps have with all the things that we do, and our hours and all that. And then you come in. First thing you're going to see is our featured products that we have. And then to your left, you're going to see a wall of video games, and then some display cases down the way. To the other side, you're going to see probably the most Warhammer you've ever seen in your life. We have probably about at least $1 million to $2 million worth of Warhammer just on our shelves. You're also going to then see, when you wrap around, you'll see our front cash wrap, all the trading card games behind it, singles inside of our display cases. Behind you will be the different various Warhammer paints and 3 aisles of Warhammer. And then around the way, you'll see the play area. And then you'll see on the shelves around the play area all the sleeves, deck boxes, accessories, binders, as well as the toys, Beyblades, Barbies, and all of that. And then to the back of the play area, you'll see vending machines for either Gashapon, Pepsi, snacks. We also have an arcade machine in there too that plays various different games. And then our restroom, which we have making sure it's always clean because no one wants to go into that really gross game store bathroom. And then you have our back room, and that's kind of the gist.
This episode of The Match Slip is sponsored by Crash City Con, Roanoke, Virginia's premier gaming and fan convention. It's tabletop gaming at its best. In addition to role-playing games, board games, there are vendors and so much more. Play with some of the top game masters in the area, enjoy a casual game in their open gaming area, or learn to play games you always wanted to play. Attend Crash City Con August 23rd through the 25th of 2024 at the Berglund Center Special Events Center. You could check out more information at crashcitycon.com.
To wrap things up here, I want to ask, this could be, a lofty goal, or this could be something that you're eyeing right now. Any future plans that you have for the store, where you'd like to see things go?
If I had the equity, I would buy a hotel, and I would buy a gaming, and I would make it a gaming themed hotel. And there would, instead of a gift shop, it would have an everything games inside of it. And I would rent out the ballroom to other local stores to be able to run their large events. And I would run all my large events there as well.
That's fascinating. I would love to see something like that exist. That's a really creative idea. How long have you been sitting on that?
About 5 years.
5 years.
It's definitely one of those where I'm like, man, if I could have it where I could play in a tournament, win store credit, and use that store credit for a hotel room. Also, why am I paying all this money to go host this big tournament somewhere else when I could just be going and paying myself for it? I don't know. Maybe I think differently.
What would have to happen for that, for all the stars to align for that to occur?
I would need a certain amount of money. I don't feel like saying right now.
Okay.
And then I would need to have the right staffing that understands the hospitality industry a little bit more to help me in making that goal happen. But I don't think it's unreasonable, and I think it's something you might see within the next 10 to 15 years of Everything Games' existence.
And I'll definitely be keeping an eye out, because that just sounds awesome. I would cover the whole event too if I could see that come to fruition. That sounds like a great idea, Cody. The first idea I've heard that's gotten me this amped in a while.
I'm excited for it. One of these days, when it happens, not if, Frank, I'll have you come out.
I appreciate it, Cody. And Cody, this has been a lot of fun chit-chatting with you, getting to know about your store. I'm wishing you nothing but success forward and, for the future years of the store. Where can everybody find you, and what else would you like to tell everybody listening?
If you're looking for, in my opinion, the best place to hang out and play games in the Chicagoland area, that's Everything Games in Buffalo Grove, 404 West Half Day Road in Buffalo Grove. Or if you don't want to come to Buffalo Grove, you can go to our website, everything-games.com.
Awesome. And I'll be sure to put a link in the show notes so that everybody can check out the store. Cody, thank you again for coming on the show. It's been a fun time.
I appreciate it, Frank, and I look forward to listening to this one and the rest of these future podcasts you're doing. You're doing a great job.
Thanks so much. I appreciate that. And for everybody else listening, I invite you to check out our newsletter at thematchslip.com/newsletter, where you can get my reviews of the stores I visit in person. Again, you can also check out the podcast, the video form on YouTube if you haven't already subscribed there. And for everybody else listening, I hope you have a good rest of your day, and we will catch you all in the next episode. Take care.